Hello Dub Nation, it's always a thrill to connect with you, especially as we're about to reveal the latest news that could shape the fate of our beloved Golden State Warriors. But before we dive into this whirlwind of information, let me make a friendly request. Show us some love by clicking the like button to strengthen our bond, and hey, if you are not subscribed yet, join our channel for a thrilling and emotional journey. Don't forget to turn on notifications to stay ahead of the game. Steve Kerr advocates for significant changes within the Golden State Warriors roster. Following the franchise's disastrous elimination from the play-in tournament against the Sacramento Kings on Tuesday, coach Steve Kerr hinted at impending changes for the Golden State Warriors. Despite a strong second half of the season, which saw them go 27-12 in their last 39 games, the Warriors faced a brutal ending at the hands of a Pacific Division rival plagued by form and health issues. Steve Kerr anticipates a different off-season for the Golden State Warriors, with many questions needing answers. With Kerr and the legendary trio of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, the Warriors have experienced unparalleled continuity over the last decade. However, this stability may be coming to an end. As Kerr stated, "It's the first time I really feel like there needs to be some change," during an interview with Willard and Dibs of 95.7 The Game on Wednesday. What does this change entail? Klay Thompson's free agency will undoubtedly be the most significant point of discussion, but it's just one part of a much broader conversation surrounding the league's highest payroll. The reality is that the Warriors have just spent over $206 million on salaries for a 10th-place finish, not to mention the exorbitant luxury tax that comes with it. According to Kerr, this is a situation that cannot continue moving forward. "I don't think it makes sense to have a huge payroll right now with our team. At some point, you can't spend that much money on a team that didn't make the playoffs. There are decisions to be made and many questions to answer." Steve Kerr. Fortunately for ownership led by Joe Lacob, there's a legitimate path to significantly reduce the payroll. Even if they bring Thompson back as a free agent, it will likely be for nearly half of the $43.2 million he earned this season. Chris Paul has a fully non-guaranteed $30 million deal for next season, offering an obvious way to trim the payroll by parting ways with the 38-year-old player. Even Kevin Looney's $8 million contract is only partially guaranteed, providing another avenue to save some money. Kerr's acknowledgement that change is necessary marks a philosophical shift, especially considering he spent much of the season maintaining faith and confidence in his veteran players to rediscover their best form. Ranking the Golden State Warriors' top 3 disappointments of the season. The Golden State Warriors season concluded on a rather uninspiring note Tuesday night after being defeated by the Sacramento Kings in the play-in 9-10 game at the Golden One Center. It marked a disappointing year for the franchise, which, despite entering with championship aspirations, fell woefully short, despite a positive second half of the season where they finished 27-12 in their last 39 games. So, which players were the most disappointing for the Golden State Warriors in a rather forgettable season for the franchise? The reality is that the Warriors have a lot to ponder after a tumultuous start to the season. Their lackluster form stemmed from the disappointing performances of many of their veterans, while injuries and suspensions also took their toll. But which Golden State players truly fell below expectations? Gary Payton too had his second consecutive injury-marked year, limiting his impact despite flashes of his form from the 2022 championship season. Dario Saric started impressively after his off-season acquisition as a free agent but found himself pushed out of the rotation due to defensive responsibilities towards the end of the season. The usually reliable center, Kevin Looney, went from being a starter to a marginal rotation piece in a surprisingly poor season for the 28-year-old. While this trio may not have lived up to expectations, they weren't the most disappointing elements of the Warriors season. Let's rank 3 players who you could argue cost the Golden State one of the top 6 spots and a guaranteed playoff berth. Draymond Green. Draymond Green arguably remained the Warriors' second most valuable player this season, which is precisely why his 2 reckless and unnecessary suspensions in the first 25 games could be the most disappointing aspect of the year. After the incident during training camp with Jordan Poole in 2022, some will argue that Green has marred 2 consecutive seasons for the Golden State. It's hard to argue against that, even though he was one of the main reasons they finished the season so strongly. Green's on-court production was better than many could have expected, especially after starting the season with an injury that caused him to miss the first 2 games, followed by minutes restrictions. The biggest surprise was the 34-year-old's improvement in three-point shooting. After 7 consecutive seasons shooting less than 31%, Green shot 39.5% on nearly 2.3 attempts per game. This included 5 threes in the first half against the Los Angeles Lakers in an impressive performance last week. Green also reminded the league of his generational defensive ability to close out the season, sometimes single-handedly winning games with clutch plays down the stretch. However, despite all the good shooting, high-level defense, and consistent play, it's hard to shake off the pair of suspensions that set the franchise back significantly. Where would the Warriors be now if Green hadn't missed those 21 games? It's fair to expect that they would have won the 4 extra games needed to secure the 6th seed and a guaranteed playoff spot. Andrew Wiggins. In his own words during a press conference on Wednesday, Andrew Wiggins admitted that the season didn't go very well for him. That might be an understatement, as the Canadian produced easily the worst campaign of his decade-long career so far. After missing a significant period at the end of last season due to personal issues and then suffering a rib injury during the playoffs, Wiggins seemed ill-prepared to bounce back to his best form in the 2022 playoffs. The 29-year-old scored over 15 points only once in his first 13 games, with a 31-point outing in the 14th game being a rare bright spot in Wiggins' disappointing season. There were glimpses of his best at different points, but it wasn't anywhere near consistent enough for the Golden State to be the team they aspired to be. Wiggins' 13.2 points per game were 3.7 points below his second-worst year in his rookie season. His rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals all dropped, along with his field goal and three-point shooting percentages. His defense remained important but not overly impactful, with a defensive box plus-minus of -1.4, easily the worst in his time with the franchise. Ultimately, all of this led to a benching for the first time in his career, a harsh but necessary decision that may have contributed to a sort of late-season resurgence. Wiggins played a role in the franchise's rediscovery of some form, but he was also a major reason they found themselves in a deep hole to begin with. Despite being under contract for 3 more seasons, Wiggins will once again face speculation about his future, with the very real possibility that he has played his last game for the Warriors. Klay Thompson. For the second consecutive year, Klay Thompson's season started poorly and ended the same way. In between, there were a series of positives that shouldn't be forgotten, but it was still a disappointing season for the veteran shooter. Even with his 16.2 points on just 34.3% shooting against the Los Angeles Lakers in the second round of last year's playoffs, there was optimism that Thompson could improve from the previous season, as he had more time away from 2 serious leg injuries. After a 6-4-18 performance in the season opener against the Phoenix Suns, Thompson's few subsequent outings were quite efficient, albeit in low volume, as the Golden State started with a 5-1 record. Still, the 5-time All-Star's form mirrored that of his team in the weeks that followed. In a span of 13 games where the franchise went 4-9, Thompson failed to register a game shooting 50% or better. 2 of the losses came by a single point, and 6 others by single digits, leading to speculation about what the record would have been if Thompson had been slightly better. By mid